Hello Africa, and welcome to another edition of AAU Talks on AAU TV. AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. My name is Irene, Dufie, and I'll be your host for today's program. Our topic for discussion today is Practicalising University Research to Mitigate Societal Challenges in Africa. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, I would introduce to you my special guest for today's discussion. Today, I'm at the library of Riera University, Kenya. Do stay tuned.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet. With our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming machines, and others, you are sure to get the best of production. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU Studio via the following addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, Ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on 0244 185 998 or 0244 693 342.
Welcome back. In case you just joined in, this is AAU Talks on AAU TV. My guest for today's discussion is Professor Francis Onditi, who is the head of Department School of International Relations and Diplomacy at Riera University. Thank you, Prof, for joining us.
Thank you.
We would want to go straight into our discussion, but first of all, I would want you to give us a brief background of Riera University, when it was established, and why it was established.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, AAU. So Riera University has a long history, and is established on a philosophy of building the next generation, right. Not just providing education as a product, but also making sure that they produce transformative young generation of people who are full of values, people right. who are committed to work, and people who are inspired to empower other people. Yeah. It is a university that was inspired by, very respected people in the society, a family of, a diplomat and also a former professor, Gachuki, who actually throughout their life, they have seen nothing else apart from promoting and endeavoring to promote education. Right. This was in 2012, but the university was established in 2012. But before then, from 1970s, the family has a long history of, education. So the family of Gachukias have a long history of promoting and supporting education since 1970s. So the establishment of the Riera University was a culmination of that, long tradition of this family supporting education. But then the university as a community, is very much established on that philosophy. But then we also have to fit into the global market. Right. So the university has established 6 schools. We've got the School of Education, we've got the School of Law, we've got the School of Computing Science, the School of International Relations and Diplomacy, right. We've got the School of Business, and finally we've got the School of Journalism and Multimedia Studies. Yeah. So putting these schools together, it gives you really the product that the family of Gachukias really endeavored to achieve, which is, inspiring young people with, contemporary education, but also nurturing them in values and also the, a philosophy of, empowerment. Yeah.
That's very fine. We would want to zoom in straight into our topic, and we want to talk about research. and we know that research is it's what upholds a country. We want to know how important research is for this university and the policies guiding research here at Riera University.
Yeah, that is important. Research, as a component of the university, because we all know that a university is supposed to do three things. One is to teach, do research, but also support community.
Right.
Now, Riera University, espouses those three values, and we do it, or we achieve that in different ways. First of all, the university, 3 years ago, we established a research policy. And the research policy guiding principles, entails things like partnership,
right.
Innovation, and also ability of our researchers to replicate the research into real products. Because you see, the problem that many African universities or African higher learning institutions have been having is conducting research, but without a formula or without a mechanism that would enable the research to get into products. Whether we are talking about products that will transform people's life, or knowledge or ideas that would support certain agenda or certain will. So the policy is very clear in the interlinkages between the three components that I've talked about,
right.
and particularly transformation of the research idea into the product.
Right.
And each one of the schools, the 6 schools that I did mention earlier, they have an obligation to ensure that, one, they build the capacities of the faculty to conduct research.
Right.
Secondly, for the senior researchers who are in those schools, to mobilize resources, both internally but also externally, to ensure that we've got funding for research, but also, more importantly, which is also unique for Riera University, to build partnership that will help us to achieve 2 things. One, to conduct what we call collaborative research, but secondly, to establish a platform that will enable the researchers, the junior researchers and also senior researchers, to disseminate their findings, but also to get these findings into the industry.
Right.
We've got some of our schools or faculty members who are, specifically collaborating with the industry to ensure that the findings and the research we establish in computer and other areas can inform the development of products, be it in computer systems, be it in legal systems, be it in education, be it in international relation. The focus of Riera University research policy is to ensure that we have the research products being shared with the industry. I'll give you an example. The school that I had, the School of International Relations and Diplomacy, we've collaborated with a number of institutions, not just in Kenya, but also across Africa. One particular institution that we have collaborated with is based in South Africa, which is the African Institute of South Africa, which is a component of the Human Science Research Council based in Pretoria in South Africa. So what that center does is to collaborate with the university institutions to make sure that we've got the research products either disseminated or developed into what is required. Recently, Riera University, we were privileged to host what we are calling the science diplomacy. Now, the science diplomacy, the object of this was to make sure we understand what is happening where. In terms of research. But more importantly, how do we make sure that these researchers who are scattered all over, one, they are linked to one another, but also we try to develop a mechanism that will enable the researchers to find opportunities to disseminate their ideas.
Right.
And where they have developed products, we find industries, relevant industries that will, will absorb their research products.
That's fine.
So it's really the interlinkages between knowledge and the research products that we endeavor.
That's fine. I think from what you are talking about, what I deduce is that there is a lot of progress. But if we look at the research output from Africa, it's less than 5% in the global world. Why is the situation like this? If we go everywhere and everybody's research is moving, it's progressing, why is it not reflecting in the global arena?
The African researchers and the research production for many decades has been suffering, what you could call structural and systemic challenges. Structural challenges in form of, for example, the linkages that is required so that somebody who is in the industry is able to understand what is Riera University producing in the School of Computing Science, for example, or what kind of ideas is the School of International Relations producing that will inform the global system. That visibility has been a problem. And you cannot blame those who control the knowledge in the global system. Why? Because the visibility has not been created within our universities. Maybe because of capacity, but also because of lack of systemic thinking that has not been part and parcel of a university ecosystem in Africa. But there is also the systemic challenge. And if you ask me, how comes only 5% of African researchers is able to be seen or is visible in the global system, I will tell you there is also the what we call the hegemony of knowledge. Right. In other words, who funds the research and who decides what kind of research is going to be commercialized. Right. For a long time, since independence, African countries have not been having that leisure. It is the West who decides what kind of research are we going to fund. And even after the researchers have developed the products or ideas for social sciences, it is them who actually decide where and how do we scale these products into meaningful commercialized products. So if you put these two problems together, the systemic and the structural, then it lands you into one particular and what I call the endemic research problem, which is producing research, yet you don't know how it tests. Right.
It's Let me leave you here and we'll go for a break. When we come back, we'll continue with the problems that we are facing concerning research on the continent. If you just joined in, this is AAU Talks on AAU TV, and we are talking about challenges of research in Africa. Stay tuned.
Riera University is a fully accredited university by the Commission for University Education to offer courses in education, law, and business. RU, as it is fondly referred to, is a continuous stream of a 40-year heritage, a provision of quality education. RU is committed to nurturing innovative thinkers who are ready to bring the much-needed change in our society and beyond. At Riera University, you will be sure of experiencing excellent customer care right from the university's main gate. The Riara University ultra-modern library was designed to provide an ideal ambience and tranquility that is conducive for productive study. The library's rich catalog and diverse information resources are supported by our state-of-the-art ICT infrastructure. This is sufficiently backed by the digital library that provides access to electronic journals, ebooks, and periodicals. The ICT lab has the latest virtualized technology that allows students to share the available resources and at the same time ensure high levels of security and privacy. In addition to network network infrastructure and unified communications, the university has invested in a library catalog system, the latest in email communications and storage solutions. The infrastructure also allows for high-speed internet connectivity and other resources, both wired and wireless, throughout the university. Our spacious lecture rooms have been designed to give students an opportunity to practice various interactive activities that provide students with an exciting and a fulfilling learning experience. Our class sizes are small to facilitate application of modern student-centered learning approaches. The Riara School of Education has been charged with providing leadership and transformative education that aims to equip learners with knowledge, skills, values and attitudes that are critical in an ever-changing world. The Riara Law School Moot Court is a spacious and meticulously furnished room located conveniently on the ground floor. At the Moot Court, lecturers merge theory and practice by teaching law students a number of trial advocacy skills. Students also learn how to make effective.
Welcome back. In case you just joined in, this is AAU Talks on AAU TV. I'm here with Professor Francis Onditi, who is the head of Department, School of International Relations and Diplomacy, and we are talking about research. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the problems of research in Africa. And I wanted to pose these questions. What are African governments not doing concerning research?
I think there are many challenges that governments in Africa are facing compared to other parts of the world as far as research is concerned. I would give you, for example, in 2018, the African Union established what we call the Continental Research Council.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the council, it's very well envisaged,
right,
very well outlined things to do and objectives to be achieved. But there's one particular challenge. The challenge is we don't have the fund. So the fund facility that can propel, because research you need investment.
Right.
So the investment that is required in order for researchers to conduct research, but also to link up with the industry in order to commercialize their products,
right,
and also to build the capacities of young researchers, it's missing. And what that means is that we've got good blueprints,
right,
we've got very good research councils. Now, as we talk, almost all African countries, they now have National Research Council or research fund.
Right.
But when you get deeper into those funds, there's no actual funds that can facilitate the African researchers.
Right.
So what you find out on the continent is researchers are just doing the research so that they can fulfill their obligation, their very narrow obligation, either for promotion or maybe just to research so that they can contribute to chapters and journals.
Yeah.
But we don't have a very systematic way of linking that process to the policy,
right,
which is the government or the regulation of research. But another thing that I also wanted to mention is the inability of the African researchers, whether it is for the government or outside the government, to ensure that the intellectual property rights is instituted.
Yeah, would have gone there.
Exactly. So that when, for example, a product has been established in Riera University, which we do, I mean, there are quite a number of ideas, young people, our students, they come up with interesting ideas and interesting products. But then if you don't have a strong regulatory framework,
exactly,
other people will just pick the idea, go wherever places is, they cross the oceans, and the other day you hear, all right, they have developed or discovered ABCD. Yet, this was a Riara University product. So that regulatory framework is required.
Yeah.
But I think what we also need to encourage our governments and our researchers is the capital, the social capital,
right,
what I call the network, the research network. You could have very interesting researchers doing an interesting job in South Africa or in Egypt or in Ghana or in Cameroon. But same research is being done in Tanzania, or maybe in Uganda. So what we need is a strong collaborative mechanism established at the horizontal level between researchers. And then they should not forget that they also need to link or plug into the government policy or regulatory framework so that their research products can be patented.
So somehow we are talking about harmonization of researches on the continent. But since we're talking about intellectual properties, which is the IP, now in this world, in this technological and advanced world where we have open access, where we say we have to make our researches open, how do we draw the line between we protecting what we have and also making our works open for others to be able to develop from that, to be able to commercialize from our works?
I would tell you that there is a lot of wisdom in every regulatory framework or every policy that is established. A policy that is going to, to choke people the opportunity to access knowledge and information and, in fact, products of research. It's not a good policy. A good policy would do two things. A good policy would, first of all, enhance the production of research. In other words, it will facilitate the researchers to produce. But a good policy would also have what we call an exit mechanism.
It's a strategy.
Exactly. A strategy that will enable the production of knowledge to get to people. But more importantly, a good policy would have what you could call a guarding mechanism to ensure that when, for example, a Riera University scientist or researcher develops an idea, this idea is attributed to Riera University or whatever university that will have produced that outcome. And it happens in different ways. It happens because one, a government, a relevant ministry has established a mechanism that will allow that mechanism. A good policy finally will allow the researchers not just to produce for the sake of it, but also we give an attribution to whoever the efforts and the intellectual, the intelligentsia, the financial investment, so that at the end of the day, all these three arms are able to benefit the researcher, the government, but also the universe, who is everybody that is willing or able to access the knowledge. Because it will be useless to produce products or to identify or produce ideas that other people don't make use of. But you need a strong regulatory mechanism that will enable the attribution of the different facets of a research process.
That's fine. And so our question now is how we would use our research to solve societal problems. In your view, in your opinion, how can this be achieved?
I would give you, in terms of solving the problems or how the research is, linked to policy and practice, I think we've got very good examples from Africa across. But maybe I could give you a specific example from, for example, Riera University and the school that I manage. This initiative that we have developed with the Human Science Research Council based in South Africa, I think if, we are moving on because we are covering different countries in Africa. One of the things we've seen working out is, for example, how do you make sure that there is a replicability of research? For example, there could be maybe a very interesting product or idea developed in one of the African countries, in Cameroon or Ghana or Nigeria. How do you make sure that, in fact, we are able to go through this and replicate it in other parts of Africa? Because all you need to do is just to work out the contextual issues. Otherwise, the principles would remain the same. So one way we've seen work for Riera University is making sure that we encourage and do the replication of ideas established in other parts of the continent. And how do we achieve that?
Right.
We are in the process of documenting. We document what is happening elsewhere and try to put it into perspective and try to see whether recommendations and replicability is workable. Where it is not workable, we can always modify. But another way of making sure that the researchers or the research is absorbed is making sure that we do what we call the applied. We encourage the applied research. And we've done this with different organizations. Riera University has collaborated with certain institutions who actually advocate for what we call system thinking and the design challenge. So what we do, we encourage our students to get into the industry or organization. They work with the organization, they study the organization. It could even be a rural-based organization, not necessarily, established organizations, because our solutions must also get back to the rural, to the
the local should benefit from it.
So we send our students to community, and they study the community. It could be an NGO, it could be an organization that is, dealing with certain aspects of life, and then they design a problem or from the problem that they experience in the field. And then they are able to do a reverse, what we call, a reverse challenge. Instead of working forward, they work backwards. And in the process, they are able to design a solution based on the practical challenges that they have established in the organization or the organizational ecosystem that they encounter. So with that then, we try also to replicate this into other places of Africa or other environments, hoping that they can be able to absorb, but also the governments can support in providing regulatory framework, a policy, so that we don't lose this intellectual property outside. We maintain them, but that doesn't mean that we don't encourage collaboration, what we call the North-South collaboration. We encourage that. But we are also very keen because, by the way, Riera University, we also espouse the values of Pan-Africanism, where we believe that something good can come from Africa.
The South-South cooperation.
Exactly. But also, we don't lose the sight of encouraging our students, our researchers, and our faculty to collaborate with the universities abroad, across from Africa, beyond Africa.
So my last question will be, what is the future of research in Africa, and then the way forward?
First of all, if we were to design and reflect on the future of Africa research, we must first of all reflect on the challenges that since independence, more than 50 years, Africa's been experiencing. And if you ask me from where I sit, the experience that we have, having worked in different universities and looking at the trends on the continent, I will tell you the most pressing issue that Africa has in terms of research is actually first of all working on the attitude of the African researchers or the entire ecosystem. How do we do things differently? So that it's not just the way it has been done. We must find an alternative way of generating knowledge, but also in cognizance of the trends, the technological changes that we experience on the continent, but also the external forces that we continue to experience as Africa. And I will tell you, the future of research in Africa is very much dependent on the how much the African people are able to reflect upon the ability of themselves to invent, to innovate, and also to translate the knowledge into practice. We can think around, we can do all sort of things, but unless we are able to translate the research and ideas into innovation, we may just be, playing to the same tune Africa's been playing for the last 50 or 55 years since independence. So we must make deliberate efforts to do things differently. And I think my recommendation would be for African countries and governments to invest into innovation, and particularly social innovation, on how to translate ideas into practice. I think that is what would really, make a shift from just doing research, but also translating those ideas into practice, but also into policy that will inform the practice.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And it has been a very fruitful discussion with you. This has been AAU Talks on AAU TV, and we have been discussing practicalizing university research to mitigate societal challenges in Africa. My name is Irene Dufie Addai, and I have been discussing this topic with Professor Francis Onditi, who is the head of Department School of International Relations and Diplomacy here at Riera University. Thanks for joining us.